down. Went in with the Zenith Blade himself, doesn't have the exhaust up now. He's taking the Magnus Sword coming out as well. And what is Zorn doing? Woody trying to get the CC onto Shun to keep Betty alive. Shun holds it and dies in the end. By Knight, Betty dashing back in between worlds. Knight can look for more. Maple dives in with a Fate Seal, but BLG will happily take the triple. The Fate Seal, the slicing Maelstrom coming in too. Shun's down, Bin's down, On's down. Fate Seal from Maple isn't enough. Bin diving onto Woody, and that's two. And Bin is just doing so much work on the back line. It's a double for Elk.
And BLG take the first game in the series, and Emily, just about the cleanest game you would have expected from them.
Exactly as expected.
So clean.
Wow.
We were never in doubt. Number one seed.
Yeah, look at the lovely gold graph. That is an LPL gold graph, people. If you've never watched LPL, this is exactly what so many games look like. BLG, if they come out and stomp game 2, I will be so mad because this is the BLG special, right? Looking either like dropping the first game in a best of 3 or looking really shaky and then coming out and stomping. Credit to PSG. I thought JunJia had an amazing early game. I thought they had really good setups until the overextension on bot side at red buff, which got Elk back into the game.
It did, yes.
And then we had a lot of fighting.
Well, and I think the big thing for me is, while there's so many fights to break down, ultimately BLG were able to hold on, find a way back to the game. And when we look at the big final fights, they were consistently out-executing in the 5v5, right?
Yeah.
And it's so infuriating because PSG didn't need to let them back in the game.
Oh
They didn't.
God.
They were in complete and total control. But they got hands dipped in a couple fights, and then BLG were back in the game and just continued to outperform.
And it rewards them. It rewards. this is my problem.
Oh, Emily's losing
like,
it. Emily's
it's a
losing
fairy
it.
tale, but you've taken away the wrong moral.
I'm so used to this, and yet I get mad every time.
Well, we will look at some better replays then from BLG in our HyperX Reflex replay. It is the BLG Baron at 41 minutes in, at which point I think PSG had already squandered it just a little bit.
Yeah, certainly.
Yone's losing record is padded again.
I don't how to be critical. Maple's not very good at Yone. Is just the kind of long and short of it. He egregiously misplays in so many fights, and while at this point it's hard for him to do too much because BLG have found a way back to the game and kind of have the forward momentum as this play kicks off, you can see that there's a lot of desperation in the way PSG are playing, and this fight to me is kind of the last straw where I don't really think this was ever going to be a good fight. But this is the culmination, it's important to highlight for PSG, of so many little mistakes in previous fights where they were very favored to win.
Yeah, and in a game state where they were extremely favored to win with their composition as well. And I think that is what is so frustrating, because this is only a best of 3, right? 2 games and you're out, and you're not just out for today, you're out for the entire Worlds tournament, and you have to turn that around. Are you confident that they'll be able to get similar leads, and are you confident that they would be able to close it out, or are we just dealing with a BLG that actually thrives in game states like this, although they wouldn't like to be behind?
Confidence meter in both of these teams is an interesting
low.
way
It's
of
shaky.
putting it.
It's shaky because I think JunJia, like we highlighted, had a way better early game, way more impactful. The counter ganks were great. The early plays were great. Like, this guy was a hero all throughout the early game. But then when they had a lead, they misexecuted. They picked some bad fights without complete information. And so it's a situation where PSG had all the tools to win the game, most certainly, and they just got sloppy in the execution.
Yeah, that overextension around red that literally got Elk back into the game was actually massive. Like, and they didn't have to do it, and then they all went in one by one.
If that was the only mistake and the game was decided on a coin flip at 12 minutes, it would be a little bit more palatable because that's the one big moment, hey, you miscalculated. But they kept making these individual mistakes in the context of fights, and it puts them in a position where BLG made a gambit in draft. They said, we'll trade Aurora for Yone, and it paid off, and it should not have. It should not have. But multiple fights, Maple misplays. Really don't want to be too critical in the context of a very high-pressure game, but he's missing Qs, he's missing ultis, he's overcommitting on an E where he doesn't have an angle, he's not stacking his Q before fights. If you are going to pick an S-tier champion, you have to play it at an S-tier level, and if you can't, you need to be willing to ban it away because the trade is not favoring you.
Yeah, and then on the side of BLG, like, I do love this team so much when they can execute in team fights, right? Like, they can be a massive team fighting team. We know just how good this team can be, but I think on the flip side of that, I'm still not super confident in their execution. I talked about their meta read at top when we had like a really short amount of time to talk about it, but it's also just been their actual like execution in lanes, their execution in fight setups, their understanding of the map. I don't think Xun was able to have the same impact early that JunJia was, certainly, and that would have been a massive difference maker if PSG had been able to close out. And now I'm really curious to see how BLG look going into the second game, because like I said, it has been a BLG classic where they've been able to come in and stomp.
They can bring it back, and they are up versus elimination, so they really have to. Here, it would be sad to see PSG go, but we'll see if they can bring it back in game 2.
That we will, because it is an elimination match, as they said so accurately on the desk. It's like, it is difficult to overstate what goes through the mind of a competitor when they know they might be eliminated from something they've worked the whole year towards. And for some people, have worked like years on years on years. Like Maple's been at Worlds since 2013. And now it may be his last dance. He said it in an interview that he was thinking about retiring. We don't know that for certain, but what a way to go out if it is. You almost win game 1 and then you lose game 2 to BLG and it's just over. It's poof, you know, it's just gone.
I think especially for Maple, when he's a guy who's previously made semi-finals, really pushed a lot of the LPL and LCK teams to the brink, and is now not only this tournament, but at MSI, been very close to taking down BLG as well. It's heartbreaking, but we'll have to see as we get into Champ Select, powered by Omen and HyperX, how this one is going to plan out, because I need to see something different coming through here, and Corgi, the coach for PSG, needs to come up with something from the back of his head.
You guys are talking about mentality. I've been watching the player cams, and in contrast to the PSG cams, everyone is just smiling and laughing, and they know they got away with murder in that last game, being able to come into this one 1 game up. So they have to be feeling great, you know. On red side here with a counter pick available to them, they were able to come into this one with a dub. They are not going to give you the option of the Yone or Aurora on blue side PSG. They are going to deny it, so they're going to cover their bases and kind of the more expected red side bans here.
But it means that BLG have to now ban the Aurora as well, right? Otherwise you're just giving it over to PSG and they have the option to pick it. Nocturne is something we have seen first picked a couple of times today for G2. Obviously works really well alongside the Orianna, but then you are giving Knight his Orianna if he wants it.
Also the Vi up and available, and I think JunJia has been exceptional when he can get his hands on this pick, so potential to try and hyper-focus on towards that jungle matchup, because I think giving Xun that across could be a bit worrisome as well. They are covering the Skarner here. I think Skarner does work well into Champions like Vi, where it's a bit more telegraphed when you're going to go in and you can preemptively get off that Skarner ult, but I still think the Vi kind of a tier above it in my eyes.
Well, at least PSG did ban away Knight's Ahri, so the very famous Knight Ahri plus Vi turbo threat is not there, and instead BLG are going to go the melee option. Grab that Sejuani synergy for the Jax very early on.
Bins Jax, right? He's just like, hey, can we just pick Jax all the time? Because I'm really good at this champion. I can win us team fights later on if you just give me this champion, please.
And he just won that game.
No, I'm curious if they're trying to bait the Orianna pick out for Maple, and then Knight will go Sylas into it, because you've already got the Sejuani, and Knight's a really strong Sylas player as well, and this could work out very well when you've already got, I mean, not a huge amount of ultimates like available right now to be known, but I still think it's strong into some of the picks that are here.
Instead, it is going to be the Smolder. Very strong scaling, something we saw kind of fall out of the meta for a little while, or at least we thought it would with some of the changes that happened. But in terms of scaling, he's just as strong as he has been for the last few months. Obviously not as strong as he was when he was first released, but still gives you that execution, still gives you that burn. You can still stack up to around the 20-minute mark. Poppy now locked in as well for PSG.
And the other good thing about the Smolder is that it's flex pick here too, so you also don't have to fully give away, right?
And the Poppy pick I really like as well, because it denies something like the Kalista, which could be taken here, because it's already going to be a matchup that's decent for Azhi in the top lane against the Jax, but it does deny a lot of these other picks. Even things like the Kai'Sa can struggle because that steadfast presence can't block the ultimate, so makes things a little bit more difficult for Elk on when he wants to try and take these fights, but still going to go towards the Kai'Sa and still have that backline threat for what BLG are setting up as a dive.
All right, and then in protection bans, because Kai'Sa doesn't have the strongest of lanes, want to take away the Ashe, want to take away some of those bullies down there, and BLG drops some bans in it.
Good to still see the Jhin coming out from PSG. It's interesting because you kind of want something to bridge you towards your Smolder getting stacked up, right? You need a little bit of damage in the early game if you're going to take fights. Obviously, you also have the option to just try not to take the fights and get towards that point, but I don't think that really is how either of these teams always play.
And that's why I think a Kai'Sa ban for BLG is really good here, because you deny something like a Kai'Sa Renata on this next rotation. It's also something that can bully out the Kai'Sa and gives you that bridge to the later portion of the game. I think it's just the easiest takeaway in this position. And then I think it becomes a question of what do you want to see for Betty. Maybe it is just the MF to try and go for, hey, Skarner, grab into MF combo and something that can bully out on that bottom side. But no Kai'Sa ban just yet. It's going to be the Renata problem instead.
Interesting too, because PSG are going to have to fit some AP into their composition. So, you know, you're also looking at the previous Rumble ban. The Kennen didn't really have the big Kennen moment that you wanted in the previous game. And so he's going to have to dig way deeper, because the Aurora's banned, the Rumble's banned. We'll see how deep they go, or if they actually do want to swap the Smolder. Instead, the Tristana ban comes out here, away from
Azhi. I feel like I'm trying to remember this correctly, and I want to make sure I'm right before I say it. Udyr. How do we feel about Udyr top?
I think
great.
he just gets Poppy. I think he's fine with the Poppy, right? It's a
Yeah, you
decent
don't think the
matchup
Poppy
into
can
Jax.
flex?
I don't think you need to. I think you're just happy with where it is. The fact there's no Kai'Sa either kind of takes away a lot of the value on this bottom side for BLG. So we're actually going to get Knight going back towards the Jayce. So this was something he was really good on back in like the 2021s and that. When he was playing back on top esports. So not fully surprised to see it, but it's not something that I was expecting to see with the shift away. But obviously lethality builds, not something that you see a huge amount, but at least can match that push against the Smolder and not actually give over a ton of stacks to the Smolder because you're not playing that melee matchup in the mid lane.
And this is something, you know, people were like theory crafting on the 14-18 bust that the Jayce got, but never really had a strong foothold. You only saw like very small instances of it. So I do like, you know, pulling it out here. It gives them the possibility of that double poke. You know, Kai'Sa, if Elk does go AP heavy route, then you also have some poke options later for the standoffs.
And then Nautilus, the last pick here for BLG. Contributing to that death fund again. Betty and Woody went for the Xayah Rakan, which gives you a little bit of safety as the Xayah, obviously later on with the Featherstorm, but also can do a lot of damage in the late game.
I think it's also really interesting because BLG have kind of identified, hang on a second, PSG Talon don't have a lot of engage tools. They're a lot better at disengage. And when you look at BLG, Jayce and probably an AP Kai'Sa, you're going to have a ton of poke damage that's there. And then the immediate follow-up from a Sejuani or a Nautilus. So I think BLG, as long as they can play this out slow, are actually in a really good spot where PSG Talon just can't push forward enough to hit them.
It feels like a range difference, really. BLG have much more range when it comes to poke later on in the game. Jayce and the Kai'Sa, as you say, teaming up. If PSG can find and engage, they can do a lot of work in that position. You have a lot of control of areas in team fights, but it is going to be very tricky for them to find those engages. For PSG, it is do or die here in Berlin. A loss here eliminates you from contention at Worlds 2024. And after you had such a strong game one against the LPL champions, you'll be hoping that you can put up a good show and at least take us to game 3.
Yeah, you don't want to be remembered just for pushing BLG at MSI, pushing BLG in some games. You know, history really does remember the victors. So we'll see if they can get it over the line here. Smolder, of course, you know, once you get your rapid fire cannon, then you've got, you know, your range and your little bit of poke as well. But we'll see if they can actually get to that stage of the game, because the Sejuani is also a great pairing with Jayce. Part of the buffs, you know, for the Jayce was the slow when you go in for your melee form as well. So I feel like Shun in this game just has a lot of options with lanes. Like, he has really, really good lanes to play around. All these BLG lanes should be fearsome, should be like creating advantages for themselves. And so then it's just up to Shun to like be able to track JunJia, make sure that Skarner is not poking out through a wall to mess up one of their lanes, and then lend that Sejuani CC to get them off the ground and really snowball them. I think that Shun this time around is in the position to have a way better game than we saw in the previous game on the Blue Card.
it is kind of quintessential BLG. Like in the regular season in the LPL, they lost 5 of their 8 first games in their series. So almost losing to PSG in game 1 is kind of what we come to expect from them. Emily was talking about it on the desk as well. They just have really slow starts to series and then start to ramp it up.
And that's why the best of ones just not their thing.
It's just cursed for them, right?
But yeah, I think there is a bit of a meme there, but it has still been a very slow adaptation from BLG coming into Worlds and also then coming into what the meta has been. So I think BLG definitely have a lot, if they manage to beat PSG Talon here, to learn before they as they start to move on, even over the course of this weekend, right? But we'll have to see how that adaptation comes through as we get another different pick for Knight, something that we haven't really seen coming through. But we'll have to see if the Jayce is going to find and work wonders for him in this one.
I mean, it's something Knight has, quite a bit of experience on. One of his top 10 most played, 76% win rate on it across the course of his career. It was one of the big flexes back when 369 actually played carry champions on top esports. They would flex things like the Jayce, and then Knight would bring out something like a Zoe, and they'd play these super long-range compositions. But now working instead in conjunction with Elk, I think it is going to be something that he'll feel right at home at, if he can just find some of that early success. And as Kobe was already saying, the ability to play around Shun, go into melee form, stack the passive stun for the Sejuani is going to be perfect for BLG. Maple currently getting the push in the mid lane. Looks like JunJia took a long route around his jungle, has only just got to his blue buff after clearing out his wolf, so he's a slight bit behind where Shun is.
Yeah, kind of going as expected here for BLG with their top pushing, with their bottom side pushing as well. Elk and on kind of nicely. Getting Betty and Woody under tower, trying to deny as much as they can. Both junglers, as you say, will finish here towards the top, towards the crashing wave. And Bin will be able to... Can he fully get this one in? Those ranged minions just outside. A little bit annoying there, but junglers might meet up on that Scuttle Crab regardless.
JunJia's already pathing towards it. Shun actually looking for the mid lane instead, deciding he doesn't want to battle over the top side Scuttle Crab. Instead, he will go down towards the bottom side, use the fact that Elk was looking for a cheetah reset to get his cull, to then move up as well. It looks like JunJia might try and sneak behind Bin with that wave not in the best of states for the BLG top laner.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell on the moment of the comms too. Bin backing off after he killed off those last couple of minions, because the Skarner is one of the few junglers that actually still loves, well,
I mean, it's just stacks. That's all they want, really. JunJia almost dies, but he'll be okay. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, there was a look in from Shun, but even with Betty and Woody having the wave pushed up, Shun wasn't quite able to find the gank he was fishing for.
This is dangerous, though. JunJia trying to get his camps right before Shun arrives.
He'll get them, but Shun will arrive in time. The flash away from JunJia gets him to safety. No longer has that summoner for the next 5 minutes.
So JunJia reading correctly that Shun was going to try and go for the respawn of his Raptors camp there, but having to burn his flash makes this Skarner way less threatening on a dive, or a gank even. Now Shun hovering around bot side again, he's going to reset. Hey, Shun off to a nice start in this matchup.
And again, he's got lanes that want to fight. He's got the flash advantage over enemy jungle. It just seems primed right now.
It definitely is. And I think that the big thing that you have to look at as well, Kobe, is the bot lane. Look how far Betty has fallen behind Elk because of the way that wave was frozen, because of the fact that Shun came across. Like, Betty and Woody have actually struggled to unfreeze this lane. Now they'll be able to do it. JunJia path towards his Krug, so he can be there first, but it's going to be about, 200, 300 gold at the end of all things. And that's with Elk having got a reset to get his cull.
Yeah, and again, he can continue to freeze here once more, so this doesn't have to realistically crash, because you do have the Nautilus coming up behind. Can he hold it out? Yeah, should be able to just hold it out from the wave. On is now reset, getting his own boots, and you've got the Sejuani still in the vicinity, so they're moving the Skarner here to show his face onto bot side, just to try and bluff, essentially, threat that they can crash the wave, but BLG not having any of it on, essentially faking that his jungler is in behind him and kind of calling JunJia, saying, are you really going to try and play this when you have no flash?
I love that point, especially because On does this so much.
All the time.
Oh, yeah.
Where he fakes that someone is behind him, even not in front of his own tower. A lot of the times, walking into enemy territory. You can get free vision or free plays like that. It's so beneficial to both you and your jungler. Of course, it kind of allows your jungler freedom on the other side of the map too. But here we are on the Grubs, and that will be number 1.
Shun has to use the smite for it, though. Knight's coming across. Maple working his way towards the river as well. JunJia should be able to secure at least one of these. Chucks out another rocket. Jun and Knight Bin now moving from the top side. JunJia using his smite to secure the second grub, or the first for his team, but the second in totality on here. Woody joining the battle as well. Bin still keeping that grub aggro. Jun has his smite back up and can get the Scuttle Crab and the grub as well.
But that was kind of what you want to see from BLG, this slow pace when it comes to the fight. So then you have to try and back up as PSG, because without Woody there, they don't really have a big engage tool. Maple had already used his ultimate on the wave, so didn't have that poke to answer for Knight kind of chipping away at him. And you can see how much respect PSG give.
And it's even good for the 1v1. Elk here, level lead down there, poking him under tower. Betty is definitely in pain this game. Meanwhile, the rest of the team here. And they pick this up. Looks like should not be... Well, actually, Skarner heading back over. We'll see if he just clears out.
I think he's just going to his camps. Don't really think he wants to challenge this. And it's so interesting how many things kind of domino into each other in that bot lane, right? Like Elk getting the reset, then being able to freeze it out. He has the colors, already 49 stacks left on it, so he's over halfway towards completing it. But because of the way that they then push the lane out, see JunJia actually getting caught here as Jun going in for the engage on with a great hook, and JunJia falls for first blood.
And to your point, Medic, this is what Prime BLG looks like. This movement from On, constantly shifting around the map, holding positions so then he can get out and work his magic. And now Maple is running, hoping that he can find some sort of way to teleport out of this jungle, but short of magic or a miracle, I think he might be done for.
And he gets clipped as well by the accelerated shock blast, meaning an execute is no longer an option for Maple. Shun should be able to chase him down, who dash across the wall with a flap, flap, flap. Knight still chasing here, Glacial Prison used just to make sure that this dragon is going extinct alongside his buddies. Knight will secure the kill, his second of the game.
He was able to get one turret plate before he had to run into enemy territory and was chased all the way through.
It's a good death, good death.
A couple extra smolder stacks on his way down, at the very least. But yeah, I mean, BLG, really good kind of transition there, up from the bottom side of the map all the way through to grab the extra objective.
And I think this is where you get to see BLG kind of continuing up on this pressure. The fact that, again, On is free hard. He's controlling that wave and bot side, sets up for Elk. He's going to take over to level 6 fairly soon and can start to move up towards, Void Grubs in a little bit. That's a little cheeky ultimate, though, denying Bin access to this wave. But now has no ultimate if Shun wants to try and move up here into this top side. So, yeah, I think he rightfully kind of backs away after picking up the plate.
Perfect damage calculation, gets the plate, denies some extra minions there. And they're going to need that money because PSG, like, their whole comp is set up for late game, front to back team fights. BLG have poke advantages. BLG have options for later for pushing on sides as well. So PSG trying to funnel all their money, kind of huddle together, wait for their later stages where they can really synergize with their 5-on-5s.
I will say, if I'm trying to funnel my gold on this PSG comp, I don't think Azure is the one that I really want to funnel it on.
You got to point it somewhere else. Yeah.
Try and get someone Maple, who's about 700 gold behind in the mid lane and maybe more, as there's the flash engage from Shun. Maple down again, and Shun joins Knight on the scoreboard.
And a great gank in the mid lane, managing to get that flash onto Maple, denying him any sort of way to get out of that. And even the ultimate a little bit late from Maple, so he doesn't get the heal. And now for something like the Void Grubs, Maple has no real access, so that should be going to BLG's way as well.
This is exactly the game I was envisioning for Shun when we kept talking about, oh, it's Dream for him. He got the Sejuani. He's got all these lanes I want to fight. This is him definitely executing quite well on it.
This is also very similar to how MSI went between these two teams. Really close sort of games where BLG looked like they're on the ropes. PSG obviously picking up a couple there. But then Game 5 was a one-sided stomp. It was very, very strong from BLG. So it's interesting to see that sort of back and forth, and interesting to see how BLG kind of wake up across the course of the series. Hubris for Knight. An item we don't too often see. Has been seeing a lot of play in solo queue recently and in ARAM, but Kobe, do you want to elucidate why he may have gone this?
Well, it's obviously because of the world song, Heavy Lies the Crown, and it's a crown.
Also, if you can't get a murder book, you need a murder crown.
So we see Shun getting caught up here. PSG trying to fight it. Bin going in with the counter-strike. Woody misses, but gets the charm, doesn't get the knock-up, and now he needs to get the hell out of there. Depth charge onto JunJia. It's another for Knight. He's stacking the hubris. Put them back under the ground. Knight finds another double, and there's 19 stacks on his hubris already.
Yeah, this is kind of the Knight speciality. He loves his stacking stacks, and he's managed to stack up a huge amount already. The murder book is what he's most known for in the LPL, which is obviously the Magi, sorry, that he's able to get a ton of kills for, but now having the hubris as well, he's just doing the exact same thing.
Woody looking for the engage onto Elk, who dodges away with the killer instinct, has that flash as well, will have to invest it. Manages to escape the 2v1 in the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big investment, but well played by Elk in response to both of those. It's kind of, you know, 1-for-1 on trades for ultimates and flashes used there, with Woody investing everything. Maybe that can open up a place for PSG to attack. It's just, it's so difficult because the, well, set up with a teleport. Maybe they...
So Betty has no Feather Storm, but does have a cleanse and a flash. On's trying to get on top of him to get the staggering blows down. They're going to land the dredge line onto Woody, who dashes back with a battle dance and escapes. Well played by the PSG bot lane to get themselves out of dodge.
Yeah, the point that I wanted to focus on, though, was the 5 grubs now being hit for BLG, because that's going to open up so much threat on these side lanes with Knight and Bin. Because while we focus on the poke, Knight being this far ahead, you can see it on the side of your screens, he's just going to be such a menace in a side lane push, and now having that burn off of 5 grubs as well, Maple just won't be able to stack up. And sure, he's getting a little bit back for himself here with JunJia and also Azhi keeping control on mid, but as the game goes on, I think BLG have a lot of winning answers to PSG's questions.
As a side note, Bin for a little bit of a fight here. Should be able to force Azure out of this bush. Goes in with the counter-strike. Knight dives in onto Maple. The quickness coming out as they look to dive onto to Knight. Mom is called. Azure now on the front line. BLG will disengage. But yeah, as a side note, you know, every fight is like, something's going to happen? Nah, it's fine. Hubris, basically what it does, it gives you lethality and attack damage, and then if a champion you have done damage to dies, you get a big burst of extra AD for the next 90 seconds, and that can stack up as well, right? So you get stronger through the course of the fight, through your Hubris, which is probably why the item was named that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah. It used to make little golden statues in the fountain, and then
yeah,
got rid
a lot
it,
of
and
them.
that made me sad. I love the little golden statues. As JunJia tries to hover around this bot side to keep this tower alive. Maple's here as well. Shun is going to meet him. Impale lands onto one. The dredge line short from On. Elks, though, still looking for the plate. There's one minion still alive. On will now tank up the tower, and Woody will have a grand entrance and give On a grand exit.
I mean, that's actually big. Any bit of gold that PSG can get at this stage in the game could be very big for their dream of team fighting their way out of it. And Shun is going to be able to execute no problem, does get all the way into enemy territory, so no further benefit gain there, but still, even being able to Skarner ult under tower, find up 1 kill. Yeah, you could also point out that these funnels, Medic, are not in the correct places. This one went into the support.
No, that is the right plot.
Okay. Right, but and anything here for PSG to try and get them on some footing where they can actually use their fight.
But the Rift Tower could be that footing. Shun's still dead. JunJia coming back onto the map. Rift Tower is up and available. This could be a moment where they try and find something, but you can see in the Mascar lane economy snapshot, Knight is massive right now, and even if you don't have Shun here for the start, the poke and the control that he offers is a little bit terrifying for PSG.
Knight gets the push out of top side. They're going to group up around the Rift Herald right now. Bin doesn't have a TP. Azure does. Azure, of course, can keep Bin around in that lane, but might want to just dodge around the side here. Hex smash back across the wall from On to rejoin with his teammates. PSG are looking for that fight. JunJia very tanky with the Zeke's convergence. Maple still stacking up, sneezing all over BLG. Woody looking for that flank, has the quickness, has the flash in a couple of seconds. The engage with the Glacial Prison. Feather Storm coming out from Betty, quickness from Woody. They're looking for On, but the Depth Charge will lock him up for a second. On now, sacrificed by BLG. As PSG managed to find a kill. Bin still pushing in the bot side. Jun being chased out by Azhi, but doesn't quite land the stun into the wall. Jun just still looking for Elk, who has the cleanse, but goes for Knight instead. Pulls him back. Where's the damage? It's Azhi right now. The keeper's verdict is that Knight is guilty. His hubris has been his downfall as JunJia puts him 6 feet under.
There's no way BLG had the correct timer on Azhi's teleport, I feel like. You know, they kind of walk into this, and even if they had gotten the smite there, this is huge for PSG.
Also, just great decision making from PSG. We talked about the potential poke and everything else that can come through from BLG, but in a straight up 5v5 front to back, PSG, if they can close the distance, are going to be so much stronger, and we get to see exactly that. BLG group up to try and force on towards the Rift Tower. Woody putting pressure on towards the back line, and it's the engage on towards On here that really spells disaster for them as Azhi TP's in. On goes down, but trying to even get away from this. They think they're safe under the tower. Maybe they can start to poke back, but the front line of PSG is so tanky. Elk only has the static shiv, and it's the turn onto Knight that really seals the deal.
I thought we've been warning about this PSG team fight, you know, fully grouped. They're the ones with the few seconds extra of teleport advantage, and they make it work. That is not a mistake that you kind of give lightly here.
And even the silver lining of getting bot tower was just answered by top for PSG. Now, BLG will get this tower, but you can already look at bot side and see that PSG are going to trade as well. So what had been a good start for BLG is really starting to disappear as Azhi now solo under the tower. This could be a bit of risky play.
He has the keeper's verdict in a few seconds, still has his flash. Betty trying to come across as well. He's met with Knight. The accelerated shot blast doing a lot of work on, looking for that turret. TP coming in from PSG as they look to collapse. On not tanking the tower yet, has that concussive blow. Steadfast presence coming out. There's the quickness. It's only onto the tank so far, but on's the first target. Glacial Prison coming down as well with Slow Maple for a second, but JunJia's here to join the Barney, to join the fight. PSG find another bin, is pinged to hit that mid lane tower, but there's still a couple of seconds before he can get on it. Betty's going to try and answer him. He has the demolish and 5 grubs. It will be enough to take the turret.
But it's the exact same thing again. BLG not respecting how quickly PSG can get across the map. They reset on bot.
Azhi goes for Elk. Gets the cleanse out of him in exchange for his splash. JunJia and Woody, though, can look for this, and Elk back in a precarious situation. JunJia just go for the Kai'Sa. Killer instinct out. TP behind by Bin as well. The Impale hits on to Elk. Bin looking to do what he did in game 1, but the verdict is that he can't get in there. In the end, PSG don't find the kill, but they burn both of Elk's summoners.
The biggest thing, too, the objective on the map is all the way on the other side, so PSG going to have to recall now to reset and run over there. They were pinging it. Dragon number 3 starts to get a little worrisome. You know, BLG, since they already had the 5 Void Grubs and the 2 Dragons going their way, if they can put this extra pressure on you by grabbing number 3 and the threat of the soul point, it would still be huge. But PSG, another team fight victory, and that one was, again, off another teleport from them. Let's see them try and just force their way in. They do have to face check, but they can do that because they're so tanky.
And they know Knight's top, and they know that Elk is bot lane, right? So Knight still has the TP, but right now, PSG get control of the river with their numbers advantage. Betty's going to be able to push out mid, can open up on that tower as well. BLG going to send Elk across to try and answer the pressure in mid.
I don't think BLG are going to fight this, though. They're just looking for that tier 2 in top, trying to accelerate this Jayce even further. PSG not really sure how they want to approach this. Azhi has his teleport up, but he's still going to run there. Terra goes down, and now if this Hoppy shows on the wave, Jayce TP's in.
There's the TP in. Azhi can TP as well. Will answer with one of his own. BLG moved up as 4 for now. Bin's going to join them. JunJia trying to get in towards the pit to take the Drake. Unlocked up. The Blade Caller coming back as well, and JunJia will land the smite. But Woody goes down first. Shun and Bin, the next 2 targets. It's support for support so far. Azhi still looking for a little bit more. Knight trying to put the damage down from long range. That's what we talked about with this composition, their ability to poke, but in this fight, they haven't really had the opportunity to do so. JunJia can look for a little bit more, chucks a rock across the wall and hits. Knight in his back. PSG trying to open up towards this mid lane tier 1. Elk and Knight here to defend. There's another wave on its way, though.
Yeah, I mean, Jayce can try and poke, but you've got 2 fat tanks in front of you. Can't really get the damage around them. Forces the flash with just the raw Skarner ultimate, and PSG, another one.
And the Dragon off the back as well. JunJia with these smite steals has been exceptional this series, and getting the better of Shun once again. This is where BLG TP Knight in, but because Knight wasn't there, the poke damage isn't really enough, so PSG still healthy enough to go for the immediate engage. On too far forward, he gets knocked up by Woody, and the steal comes through from JunJia. On falls, and now BLG trying to play this slow. Kite back, look for the poke, look for the damage, but as Kobe was just saying, Azhi and JunJia are just too tanky at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they like locked up JunJia. You know, he's like stunned up there, but he took almost no damage. And he's like, well, I'm already next to the dragon. It's fine.
Just stay here.
He's calm and collected. He's like, I don't have to worry about moving. I'll just land the smite and then brute force. With this composition, brute force is the way you want to play, and that's how PSG have just forced their way back in.
And it's a great build from JunJia for exactly that reason. You see when the win probability powered by AWS goes down, but he hasn't gone for the hard steal that we've traditionally seen in a lot of Skarners. It's been the Zeke's convergence into Warmogs. Warmogs is one, great against all the poke, but the Zeke's in this instance as well just helps keep everyone slowed and close to you. And when PSG are trying to chase down these members of BLG, it's exactly what you need. So great decision making from JunJia on this build for this game.
2 items on him, 2 as well for Maple with the Manamuna in the Spear of Sojourn, 2 as well for Knight, or 2.5 with the Last Whisper in his inventory. Maple still sacking up a little bit slow as the hook goes down onto JunJia. There's the double impale into the grand entrance, but the charm coming back with the quickness into the blade caller. Look at the CC, look at the suppression on BLG, and look at the flash forward from Betty. He tries to get onto Elk, he can't quite get the damage down. Elk somehow survives through the burn, through everything. Elk is still standing.
Oh, Betty wanted it so bad. He saw it in his eyes, so close. But they fumble it there. Elk able to survive, BLG able to survive and fight them off.
We do need to start looking at the BLG dictionary though, because slow needs to be found at some point in there. Because going for these sorts of plays just sets up for PSG to play with their strong front line. The damage coming through from Woody is insane here in these close quarter fights because he gets so much damage from the feather pullback and the great flash from Betty. But look at the health, the shield. I don't like. He's so
to red buff
low.
as well.
I mean, even the red buff from. Like, I don't know.
There was one auto that went onto Shun instead of going onto Elk, and I think that would have killed him. I think that would have killed him so close, but I love the fact that Betty's feeling himself enough to go for those sorts of plays in a series like this when your world spot is on the line.
Yeah, he had so many feathers down. He wanted the biggest of blade callers. Just needed a tiny bit more.
Behind. Elk not here. Knight the first target. Azure locks him up for a second, on going forward as well. Azure still trying to chase Knight out. Bin here to join the party as On flashes away. Keeper's verdict on Bin is that he needs to come back in a couple of moments. He's going to TP behind them here, but perhaps PSG have a moment in the 4v5 to really open up. Mom comes down, the Featherstorm used as well, but Bin finds the 4-man stun on the back line. Elk cleanses away the Blade Caller route, and once again it's Giga Bin absolutely styling on fools.
PSG completely fall to the non-weapon of Bin, but he's an absolute weapon wielded by BLG in this fight, and that will be the Baron taken for the LPL.
BLG. I'm sure their fans were not worried at any moment in any game in this series.
No, can tell you, not at all.
Honestly, though, now with Baron buff, it should start to look smooth again for them. They did have a very, very good start to this game. Just ran into a little bit of trouble in the last few team fights. But here's a look at how this one actually started out. And it was a little bit more, risky at the very beginning because of the positioning here through River. And they do get an ejection onto Bin, but he just says, fine, I will teleport back for the flank angle.
And the thing is, it's so hard to start these fights without Woody, but this is where Bin comes in over the back, ward hop in, even goes for the flash past the feather pull as well from the Xayah, and then I think even maybe leap strikes away a second time, but really nice stuff from Bin. But now with Dragon just up and available, Maple moving back towards the top side, PSG licking their wounds, do not want to fight BLG once more.
And the important thing for the poke comp is to be ahead of the curve in terms of items, in terms of damage, and that's exactly where BLG are now. 6,000 gold their lead. They have 3 items on Knight. They have 2.5, almost 3 on Elk, who is going to continue to rattle down damage with those Void Seekers, and they can start to siege up and actually really utilize their composition to its greatest effect, which is doing exactly that onto Woody and JunJia and just constantly putting damage into the backs of PSG.
And every comp with a Bin Jax is just a Bin Jax comp as well. Yep. Especially if you have a Sejuani, but he's over 2,000 gold ahead now as well, working on the Frozen Heart, so he can be a tank in the middle.
On looking for the hook here onto Azure, goes in with the depth charge as well. He's impaled the quickness on the backline, but already BLG have taken 1 kill. It's 1 for 1 so far. On and Azure falling. Betty having to pop the Featherstorm. Bin is Bin, baby! Already we see Elk killing off Betty. Bin looking for a little bit more as Woody dashes out of the fight. Bin wasn't even really needed, just forces PSG away. Now the tier 2 in the bot lane, the target for BLG.
There's a nice attempt from PSG, but Bin on the flank sets up for BLG to take the fight. Now he's back on towards mid, and he's healthy as you like.
Maple has hit that execution threshold, and looks like PSG are trying to collapse onto Bin. No flash for him, no way out. You gotta feel. Goes back in with the counter-strike.
No way.
Who needs a way out? This is Bin we're talking about, and then he dashes away with a leap strike. Put him in the trash, Bin. Does exactly what you need him to do in that situation. For a moment, I thought there was no way out for him, but who's locked in where with whom?
When there's no way out, look for the way in.
I mean, he's a boxer, right? So he just has to dodge everything, but he still gets hit by everything. Maybe it's more the Homer Simpson approach to boxing, where he just absorbs everything. The Sundered Sky then goes in, and there's just no real follow-up because the Counter-Strike denies all of the auto attacks and Maple goes down.
Look how close he was to the execute there. So close to that line.
Maple knows.
What can you do but laugh at the end?
3,000 gold ahead, Knight the same. Overall, BLG cresting over towards that 10k gold lead that so often is insurmountable. And for PSG, it is a world full of maybes and what-ifs. They've been close on so many occasions. Obviously, done well to get to 1 and 2, but I think they would have wanted a little bit more with how well they performed from time to time. Even the series against FlyQuest as well. It was a very close game in the early game until FlyQuest really began to take it away. They're still looking for more here, though, as JunJia goes in with the Impale. The quickness coming out as well is stopped by the depth charge, but Knight is locked against the wall, and Bin, even he can't rectify this situation, can't bail them out. The bait caller back onto On, who has to flash away himself. Elk now joining the battle, a double counter-strike as the engage goes on to Azure, but BLG have only found one so far. Betty's on that front line, no Feather Storm for him, and Bin finds it again. I doubted him for a second, but he makes you believe that Jayce is the most OP pick in the game. It's Bin again to clean it up for BLG.
Bin decimates PSG Talon, and with that, they will be bowing out of the World's Championship, but for BLG, it's only one more step on what is a long road ahead of them.
BLG are looking to get to 2 and 2, to challenge for the quarterfinals, to continue to level up as they defeat PSG and go to the next round.
Completely unrelated, but if there's any player champion combo that you want a world skin for, I want a world skin
BLG
for
Bin.
Yeah, for Bin Jayce.
I mean, it was all about him this series. It was on the back of Bin that BLG managed to make it through in game 1, in game 2, so often the carry for them. And that's it from us for now. That's it from PSG as well as BLG. Take a dive. We're going to hand it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much. I don't think it's unrelated, Kobe, because, I mean, he keeps doing these things on Jayce, and he is also our Uppo player of the series. We went back and forth, and I just wanted to give it to him because of that moment where PSG Poppy ults him out, and then they actually give him the in to TP for the flank ward. I think that was sick.
And then after that, he continued to completely Duncan style on them, only further validating the choice, of course, is PSG, do a quick bow. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. But from the perspective of BLG, look, like, these games were a hot mess across the board. But this is the player talking about.
Congratulations, you played yourself. That's what happened.
Here he comes. He's just going to come in right off. Super easy access to this PSG backline. And prior to this, you'd see, you know, PSG would win a fight, or they'd get like an advantage because BLG would overstep, or they'd go into a choke. And Bin got so much gold because they were just like, no, Bin, you stay bot lane, you get that turret. You stay mid lane, you get that turret. And then in this fight, he's able to get the TP flank off being Poppy ulted out and shows up with already a lead. And then comes in and gets even further of a lead.
It's actually crazy because I think that a lot of people will be like, oh, this has just been on Jayce, and look at him in isolation. It's been Jayce, there's no question. But you really have to appreciate how many situations the team was in where Bin didn't show up for the team to get more gold, so he could be this late game threat. Everyone on BLG conceded advantages to put him in that position so he could make a montage out of PSG players.
I know the interview with Knight is coming up, but he was one of those players. We were like, what are you doing? Apparently just feeding my Jayce. Okay.
Yeah, you would think that it's all a genius bait, some would say. You could say questionable itemization, or you could say he put a target on himself by building hubris, which gave Bin the freedom. It's just, I'm so coping. Please.
I did. I can't explain BLG. I mean, I've tried. We're watching the game
really
together.
Tried.
Yeah. I think the other thing I did want to point out with this Jayce pick, it was super interesting from Knight. We will get to that. Oh, okay. I think we saw this at MSI previously when Knight was looking super, super strong. This is a pick he's defaulted to. When it came to that point in the draft, I was like, oh, he's going to bring in the Jayce special.
And he's standing by with Lauren, the Verizon post-game interview.
And welcome back to the stage for this post-game interview with Knight and Wendy. Thank you so much for joining me. Ni hao. It's been an amazing series, but also a lot of back and forth between you and PSG. Can you talk me through the expectations you had coming in today against this team?
那首先恭喜你们获得本场比赛的胜利，但是我们纵观这一局 BO3，还是有非常多打得有来有回的部分，所以说也想问一下，在面对到 PSG 的这场比赛，你们有什么样的一些期待呢？
其实我们赛前是想抱着没有那种压力去打的，但可能打的时候还是会有点压力，就希望我们接下来比赛就都没有压力吧。
So maybe before today's game, we try to hide this kind of mindset, like, okay, guys, have no pressure. But actually playing on stage, we feel like there's still some pressure on our shoulder. So hopefully in the future, we can fully enjoy the moment of playing on stage without any nerves and pressure.
Interesting. I will follow up on this a bit later, but I wanted to ask, why Shun instead of Wei today?
但是还是想要问一下，为什么今天是勋而不是打野威呢？
也是我们整个赛训组的，就训练赛选出来的人吧，就赛训组安排的。
So it's actually based on our scrims results, and also this is also decided by our coaching staff.
All right. Well, I guess it made more sense here to play with him today. Can you tell me about Jayce? We haven't seen this champion at all, mid lane especially. Do you think it's the type of champion that we would see again, and why did it make sense in this draft specifically?
那说到这一局比赛，不得不提到你的一个杰斯，其实也是在这一次世界赛当中还没有在中路见到的英雄。想问一下，为什么会选择杰斯这个英雄？觉得在今天的这一场比赛当中，为什么他会是一个比较好的选择？未来我们在赛场上会不会看到更多的杰斯登场呢？
我觉得杰斯这版本在中斗的话是有点逆版本的吧。我个人选择杰斯，可能是因为我杰斯玩的比较好。我可能接下来就要考虑这英雄是否比赛上好不好吧，感觉没那么强。
To be honest, I really feel Jayce is out of meta a little bit at Worlds, but it's actually the champion I'm very comfortable with and really got the confidence in. Because of this, I pick it on stage today, but in the future, I like to rethink about my choice as well because I think Jayce may not be a very strong pick here on stage.
All right, you talk about confidence, and I want to follow up on this because I don't feel like BLG has been playing to the fans' expectations, especially considering the fact that you're LPL's first seed. Is this a confidence stage issue, or is there anything else going on for you guys?
那其实你刚才也提到了是个自信的英雄嘛，那我们来聊一聊自信心的问题。其实很多粉丝朋友们可能会觉得 BLG 的一个表现没有达到他们理想中的那个预期，因为作为 LPL 的1号种子，大家也会对你们寄予厚望。所以说也想问一下，你觉得目前可能队伍状态没有那么好的一个原因会是什么？是因为自信心的原因，还是有其他的因素呢？
我觉得状态不好的原因可能是因为就我年龄小的选出来比较少吧，就大赛经验可能也没有那么丰富，就我们会接下来一场比赛就用比赛去调整的。
So I think why we have some fluctuation maybe here on stage is because there's some players with not that kind of experience. So sometimes we still be a little bit nervous playing here, and definitely we're going to use our stage performance to prove ourselves and also use the stage performance to just enjoy the games.
Do you have one final message to the Western fans, Knight?
那最后有没有什么想对大家说一点的呢？
Thank you very much. We are fighting.
We are fighting. BLG is indeed fighting. Thank you so much, Knight, Sheshe, for the interview. Wendy, thank you so much for the translation. And BLG moves on to the next stage.
They stay in it, indeed. They're not quite in quarterfinals yet. May I just shout out the exceptional PR training of our LPL players because, you know, it was perfection. Also, the question in terms of why has the performance not been there? Lack of experience is cited, which I think I don't really agree with that, right? As a reason, but it's a great answer nonetheless.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a non-answer. You know, we'll give it to him. You know, obviously the players are pretty experienced, especially compared to a lot of the names and faces, but you never know, new environment, you know, new studio, maybe there is some adjustment.
Studio, we've heard things.
We can give them, whatever the reason is, the performances up until today certainly were not there. And while today was a hot mess, I think at this point, if you're BLG, you're happy to get the wins where you can, and you want to just start building this momentum as we go forward in the tournament, especially because, like, again, we highlighted Bin. This is a tournament where Jax is blind pickable, and BLG are clearly the best team in the LPL. Like, you're really set up for success here.
Yeah, and I think as we look through some of these highlights, the big thing for me is that when it did come to some of the team fights, the way they did fight with Jax was better. I actually don't think Bin's been having a super great tournament thus far, especially compared to expectations. This is the top laner that we kind of unilaterally said going into this would probably be the best top here, and he is definitely not. This is kind of the first series where we've really seen him pop off, and they gave him a lot of resources to do so. So I think going forward, even though this is a shaky win for BLG, they did default to some comfort. I hope that they can get some confidence from this and maybe continue to adjust their meta read.
I think they're still like the team you do not want to draw. Still, we'll go to the bracket in just a second. I would like to take a minute to talk about Maple because he has alluded to retiring. You know, we've had this in the past where it did not end up happening, but regardless, I want to kind of treat it as such for if it does happen. And then this would be the last foray of him at Worlds. And I think not as much this tournament, but plenty of ones before this where he was the original LCK killer, right? A fantastic imprint on our League of Legends and our LoL esports history. And it would be very sad to see him go.
It would be really a shame to see him retire because I think that PSG are the PCS and Maple is PSG, right, at its core. And while other players have stepped up over the years and there have been contenders to kind of challenge them at the top of the table, this is a guy and who has always been on these teams who have found so much success, who has had a career that's spanned across multiple regions now. Like, he is to me, one of the most iconic players in the sport, in its history, and I think he deserves that credit. But mostly, I think what he's known for are the big upsets, and I think people have to remember like how impressive the longevity of his career is. We don't even talk about his domestic dominance because we just don't have the same coverage of the PCS that we do of other regions domestically, but he is so good domestically, and he always transitions it into a memorable result internationally.
Yeah, he is a really memorable player. He is a very intelligent player, and I also think when you're looking at the way that the regions are combining next year too, right? Like it's not, even if he doesn't retire, it's kind of a sunsetting of what the PCS was going forward into APAC. So him on this PSG Talon team, they couldn't get it done, but you know, I still think he is a stellar player that people really should remember within like a whole esports canon.
And I think even if there wasn't going to be this kind of combination of leagues or these merging of regions, like you would still look at the context of the PCS as pre and post Maple.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because this is a guy who just has always won. And that's something that no player has really ever been able to match in any region. There's no comparable level, I think, of domestic dominance anywhere else in the world. And so he will always be this focal point, and he will always be this historic point for this region as long as League of Legends is played.
Yes. We're going to miss you, Maple. Thanks
Maybe.
For the memories if you do choose to retire. Otherwise, we'll gladly
welcome you back.
Still talk about you. Also, you blew my mind there for a second because you said pre and post Maple, and I was thinking things like pre and post FLICKR, pre and post Caps.
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
Well, there
right?
was a
pre
weird
and post
like
Bjergsen,
you have to include the detour, right? Because he went,
the detour.
Went to LPL and then like
please Caps, don't go to the
and then came back to PCS.
No, Caps, please don't go to the LCS.
Sorry, I might have done a little bit of a narrative there, given that there were a decent number of years where he wasn't just in the region.
European caster narrative detected.
Look, sometimes you got to spice it up for the people at home.
You do.
I think the statement stands, even if some of the details are a little
Speaking of spicing it up, give me that Swiss bracket, because we are heading towards some possible 2-2 matchups that are a possible nightmare for the Western teams. I'm just going to say it. Regardless, though, we're going to go ahead to tomorrow first. We have Fnatic versus Weibo. This is all elimination. And TL versus GAM. Fnatic Weibo. That's going to be really difficult for Fnatic. I'm just going to say it.
I think Fnatic are in free fall. I would love to see them find their composure because I think they can have a fighting chance if they come in at full strength. But that last series kind of took away the last little bits of hope because you could see them really lose the plot. And the other times this year where they've collapsed like that, they've needed time and they have been able to come back swinging. But this is a very tough turnaround to go from such a losing game, such a catastrophic game, to then needing to show up in a best-of-3 versus Weibo. It's a really tall task.
Yeah, TL, same vein, right?
Yeah, and then, I mean, TL, I know Jan talked about it when he was on the desk, but it's like, this is the grudge match, right? Like, GAM were the team that eliminated TL previously last year. This TL roster has not been performing to their own expectations, right, of what they wanted to do here. And on the side of GAM, man, what a story, right? Like, they stuck with this roster post, like, everything that went on in spring. They grew together over summer, and now they're here fighting to continue their tournament. Like, I think GAM is like a really great story, actually.
Yeah, make them believe it's made for them.
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
It really is. So I don't want to do it to them, but I want to kind of simulate a result. So just see it as not jinxing, okay? Let's say expectations, I think, could say that Weibo survives and TL survives. Then the 2-2 pool is DK, Fly, G2, BLG, TL, Weibo. That's crazy.
I think if you're a Western team, you're hoping to draw another Western team.
But you only have one chance.
Or DK.
Yeah.
Because DK are a hot mess.
Or,
actually, to be fair,
you can maybe throw Weibo.
the remaining LCK and LPL representatives are all very messy. Like, these series are
depending on
close.
their performance against Fnatic. Yeah, because I do think Weibo can regroup. I've talked about what a surprise it was that actually LNG was the first LPL seed out. But yeah, it'll depend on how Weibo look against Fnatic as to how confident I am in them.
I'll say one more thing for GAM. If they do knock out TL and then they get matched against another LEC or LCS representative and knock them out, they will have just killed more LCS and LEC representatives than any LCK or LPL team at this tournament, and probably this year. Like, that would be insane. That is something that, while I would hate to see it because I have a lot of love for TL, obviously, knowing that region so well, it would be incredible to watch.
Oh, these last 2 days are going to be insane. I have a tummy ache already. I'm so nervous. That's it from us. We're going to take a break on that great note. We're going to be back tomorrow for those elimination matches at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time, 8 a.m. Eastern US for more Worlds 2024. Get a good night's rest, and we'll see you then.
Mercs. It's like the most Mercs games in human history.
It is. ETS feed for example. Zenit playing in. Kevin's going to have to flash away on Summer. One more!
I think good. I'm coming. I'm going to help us, okay? Ari is not coming.
All they can do is buy him a second to wait. The flash charm from Baker. It's all done. It's all over. Baker flashes away. The ignite ticking on it won't be enough. There's the stun into the shield's rage. They break into the solar flame into the death of Yike.
I'm running, okay? Yes, I'm very strong. Nice. I'm going to push it. I can't recon yet. Go next, actually. Nice. Bye. Ari. I can block some. Ari. I'm very low. Go Jayce first and then Ari. Go dash after.
The dive onto the backline by Yike, but immediately he is low. Caps already assassinated on the back. And T1 are just ripping them to shreds. It's another Friday. It's another T1 win. Woody trying to get the CC onto Shun to keep Betty alive. Shun holds it and dies in the end. Fate sealed from Maple isn't enough. Bin diving onto Woody, and that's 2. And Bin is just doing so much work on the backline. It's a double for Elk. Look at the suppression on BLG, and look at the flash forward from Betty. He tries to get onto Elk, he can't quite get the damage down. Elk somehow survives. I don't like. He's so low to really open up. Mon comes down, the Featherstorm used as well, but Ben finds the 4-man stun on the back line, and once again it's GigaBin absolutely styling on Fools.
This is what you want.